I recently sat down with Dr. Serena and had a very interesting discussion about the human body and how it's actually a metaphor for your life. Maybe you've connected the dots between your emotions, your wounds, and what is actually happening in your body. Maybe you've never even considered it. Either way, you're bound to learn something new from this episode. Join me for Dr. Serena's story. This is the highway to healing. I'm delighted to have you on the podcast today, Dr. Serena. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. So I like to bring guests on the podcast that have gone through big life shifts and changes where they had to go within in order to pivot and grow and live a happier life. And your story definitely aligns with that. I would love to start in your earlier years. You're very young, but start even earlier. And you had shared with me that there was like self-worth, self-value issues and how it also connected to a pregnancy. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure. So growing up, I was a competitive gymnast. And with that, I had the coveted gymnastics body. Like I remember walking around sleepaway camp. Sure, it was warm out, but let's be honest. I was either in a sports bra, I know like the midriff thing was cool back then, but or my shirt would just be like partly unbuttoned so everyone could see my six pack. And on the other side of things, sure, I was smart. I was in honor societies, but for whoever I was, I still never saw it as good enough. So I never really believed I was smart. And then when I began going to college and I gained the freshman 15, that was when my so-called perfect body went. And it was like, I just felt like I had nothing to grasp on. And there was no way I was feeling good about myself. So I would try whether it was controlling food or going out or just there seemed to be all these quick fixes. And that was a lot of the back and forth in my life. And then so fast forward, throughout my 20s. So then from college into medical school, where there was actually another huge break of a weight gain issue. And now all of a sudden, other health concerns were popping up. But still, it's like I stuffed it down. It's not that bad. So I started my own practice in New York City. And to give back, really started working with a lot of weight and hormones because, okay, that was my story. How can I relate? But I think I always felt too that we're more than just our diagnosis. And eventually my patients were like, why can't we lose weight and everyone else can? But the funny thing is, even though I too was now privy to everything, trust me, whether I asked for it or not, whether we were in an office or not, I was still in my own self. Okay, how much do I need to work out? How much can I do? How much do I need to study? What can I do to feel good enough? And also, am I really practicing what I'm preaching? So, a few years into practice, where I was now over 30 and I was feeling the pressures of what it meant to be single. And I still wasn't feeling great about my body because I was trying to control things more than ever. And it didn't really work. Like it sometimes did, sometimes didn't. Yes, I believed I was smart, but was I really ever smart enough to be an expert? And all this stuff kind of came crashing down because while there was a period of time that my business was exploding, there was also that piece of I had attracted someone into my life and a few months later did find out I was 14 weeks pregnant because I was just trying to fill all these voids. And when I think deep down I knew because I remember right afterwards thinking, shit, I think I should have gotten plan B, but I didn't because I didn't have that much confidence in my body and how it worked. But then I put business so far first that how could I even admit that something like this could even be happening? Because wouldn't that take me away from being all the successful entrepreneur that I told everyone I'd be? And it was just this huge clash of everything just exploding. And now, how could I even make sense of it? Because I'm a doctor of hormones. Shouldn't I have caught this? Shouldn't I have, taken responsibility and taken control of my life and asked for help and all this? Well, so you can probably hear some of the exasperation. That's exactly how I felt after the abortion. Was even that I felt was chosen for me, and I had to do a lot of forgiveness around that. And it was coming to the place of I never wanted to be in this scenario again, but it wasn't so much the exact scenario, it was why wasn't I able to not only see the signs and synchronicities, but trust my own intuition? And that began years upon years of really that soul searching, both to myself, that as above so below, to seeing that reflection of in the world of how did I even get here. And so a lot of questions along those lines have began that transformation.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like there's a belief system that you have, and I would agree with this belief that everything is happening for you. So is that how you've kind of equated all the different things that have happened in your life? Do you feel, looking back, that it was actually divinely orchestrated in order to teach you certain lessons?
You hit it right there, because I believed everything was always happening to me. From the outside, I had all my needs met, but I was still miserable. But why couldn't I feel miserable? Look at all that I had. But there was maybe just something about who I was in my makeup. And then why couldn't I lose those last few pounds? But everyone else seemed to look fantastic, or they didn't care. So why did I care so much? Why couldn't I be like them? And it was just so much of my life living with all this energy put into looking at other people that it became exhausting. And part of where I began shifting, I say with, I guess some hesitation out of weight and hormones, because I still do work with a lot of it. But it's more in the place of I saw people and even myself getting other diagnoses and other concerns that were so much more than just what they were coming in with, that it was now expanding my specialty into I want to be able to answer those why questions for everyone, and realizing that as if you put everything into a story, it also helps our brain conceptualize it. So when I think of all the lessons that I learned, like when I had the weight gain, oh wow, look what gave me my specialty that I'm so passionate about. There was an elbow injury that sent me to where I chose to go to a therapist. Well, that got me into healing because I don't really have any wellness or doctors, those professionals in my family. So everyone's like, "Oh, how did you?" There must have been some family, like parent, or I was like, "No, this is just my own drive and motivation." And you pull things from different areas of life. So realizing that everything really does happen for me instead of to me became this really empowering to see, oh wow, this is how my life is played out. But it's also that place in I stopped thinking of myself even in current times. If there's something I still want, I just shift my belief. And sometimes I've really had to like do some deep work for that of wait, maybe I'm in this holding period because there's something greater or there's another lesson.
Yeah. You've mentioned to me, which I loved this sentiment. It said, your body is a metaphor for life. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, so as I began working with people, one of the from going from the physiology piece and then actually kind of to what I was talking about before. So physiologically, for example, our fat cell, it has over 10 different receptors, like vitamin D and blood sugar and estrogen and progesterone, a lot of that sciencey stuff. So why did we think there was a magic pill for it? The next example is when I began, really thinking outside the box of instead of, okay, what can I do naturally to help someone for a symptom? What is their symptom trying to tell them? Because something like weight loss, and I know, and I realize too, I even sometimes get hesitant about saying that because I feel like there's such a stigma around the word weight. But it's like, what other concern, whether it's weight, chronic pain, just concerns that haven't yet been diagnosed, could be there to teach us what are the lifestyle changes that we need to potentially change our life. And this could even be like, do we need to change our network? Do we need to change our friends? What about our beliefs? So now our symptoms become not just what could be cured physically, because I've also given all the turmeric and other weight, everything that's been studied for weight loss. But the funny thing is, many times what does work with people is when we find blocks in other aspects of their life that they proverbially let go of. So now I began realizing that our body is a metaphor for our life. We need to start thinking of what do we need to learn in this journey beyond just our physical symptoms.
I love that. It reminds me of that book, You Can Heal Your Life by Louise Hay. It's a good one.
It it is, and there's so much to healing and even that piece of the unknown. So this is where coming back to seeing that we don't have to just blame ourselves for our symptoms, even though yes, a lot are lifestyle based, but we could even go into karma and the deeper reasons of why. So creating these stories, finding what resonates for people, it's just yes, it may not be quote unquote all our fault, unlike what society may want us to believe, but what can we take responsibility for?
Yeah, if we all took responsibility for ourselves, the world would be a completely different place. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
He'd also said to me, if I can envision it, I can make it happen, which I love because I know people listening to this may feel stuck or they may not know where to go next or how to achieve their dreams. But you put it so beautifully where you felt like, as you looked back at your past and manifesting, that if you can actually envision it and see it and feel it in your mind's eye, then that energy was present. It was there so that you could make it happen. Is that correct?
That is,
Yeah, it's beautiful. Before we part ways, there's an app that you spoke about. There's a moon energy app. And you said you were sensitive to moon energies. So talk to us about either about the moon energies or about the app, because I too have been looking more at new moon and full moon cycles and how that really does affect people, including myself. So, what has your experience been with moon cycles?
yeah. So interesting. In naturopathic medicine, one of our most common lifestyle therapies will recommend, especially to pre and, in some ways, perimenopausal women, because that's the thing. Perimenopause is not really a diagnosis. It's like I've worked with a lot of it, so it's like, okay, let's look at let's clean up everything, so to speak, and then, we'll get a sense of it. Whatever's still there, we'll address that too. So, as nature, we are part of nature. We cycle with the moon. Fun fact with men is that they actually cycle more daily, like their rise of testosterone is more on a daily than, over the month. But with women, we have about 4 hormones in flux every month that are constantly cycling through. And while we know this, and then the fact that we're made of like over 80+% water, and the moon, it helps change. If it can change the tides, then what the hell is it doing inside of us and the different pressures it releases on our organs that can affect our hormones, our neurotransmitters, all our signaling, and so forth. So that's more from the medical science perspective. Personally, I always felt like there was more to life even when I was a little girl. That I was just, I don't know, like I just knew there was more than living in a, okay, work, be successful, get married, that kind of linear, be healthy, that timeline. And as I began just really having these moments of exploring more knowledge, kind of training myself in that respect, and then especially post pregnancy, that was where I really now wanted to implement those answers to the tough questions. Was I began realizing that when it came to manifestations and and just everything along those lines, well, I actually fell in love with astrology when I was a teenager, but it wasn't really talked about or mainstream outside of like your sun sign horoscope. So I don't know, I just kind of, same thing, stuffed it down, let it go, whatever, just move forth in life. But same thing, I didn't understand, why did my manifestation seem to take longer than others? And I even saw an astrologer. Personally dug into my natal chart, brought up those passions. And I'm Saturn ruled. I have a lot of Capricorn, and I'm a Capricorn sun and Aquarius rising. In other words, I will be practicing a lot of patience in this life. And when I read that, it just helped confirm everything I've been through, everything that I've waited for, because I realized I wasn't really waiting. I was being primed to not only receive what I was asking for, but I was receiving it from a place that I could have such gratitude that there I couldn't really self-sabotage, because I've had those moments when if something so-called came in too soon, I would self-sabotage without even realizing it, and it wouldn't be until after the fact that then I'd have to learn. So, realizing, going through my natal chart, that, okay, this is pretty significant. What else is in there? Oh, wait, I'm a Pisces moon. Most of my chart is Pisces and water. Like, actually, all my planets are on the second half of the zodiac. Because that's also why I felt I was always dreaming so big, because there was this bigness that I always saw in life. So where I realized that, oh my God, I have a Pisces moon, that about half my chart is earth, the other half is water. I remember hearing, oh yeah, it's like going through the mud. And I began realizing, and I was seeing this in some patients too, that there were some more emotions coming out when the moon was in Pisces, or sometimes if there was another water or element related moon. And so it really just made me think that it's more than just, oh, if our body cycles with the moon physiologically, then what could it also be doing mentally? So there are times I'll use the app if, let's say, I'm feeling a little more burnt than usual, if I feel a little more emotional, then I'll go to the app and see, because it literally tells you where the moon is, because it changes every 2.5 days, of like, hey, is there a reason for this? Or maybe there's a day I'm super motivated. Those are like the fire element type moons. Or maybe I'm more in my head, and that's the Capricorn moon, when I'm just like, I don't feel like being social and I'm super focused on work. So I've also started using the moons in my life as well to just further help understand me, who I am, what I have to offer, how I could optimize my life. And, while it's certainly not the be all and end all, because, as I say too, just all of these therapies, it's a part of who we are. It further helped me understand myself, understand my story, knowing that there was a world beyond us. And once again, coming back to that, further who I am and all that I have to offer as well.
I love that. Yeah, moon energy. It's fascinating, and I can tell when it's a full moon, and I'm really starting to pay attention to new moon energy. So I love that. I know you can go on your app store on your phone, and there's a bunch of different moon apps that people can take a look at. I think it's a great idea. It'll give people a lot of insight. I too am a Pisces moon, so I get it.
Yes.
Beautiful. Well, Dr. Serena, thank you so much for joining us for today's episode.
Yeah, and thank you again for having me and having these questions as well.
Absolutely. All right, we'll talk again soon.
All right.
For more information and to connect with today's guest, please go to drserenagoldstein.com. Stories like this one are important to tell. It reminds us that even during the darkest times, we can always find light. We can always choose faith over fear. For exclusive content, please join my Spark Plug members only community and apply to be a guest on this show. Find out more at spiritandspark.com.